Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? It's still morning. Good morning. It is 11:16 on the East Coast. Good to see a lot of you guys jumping on. We have been on a mindset journey talking about mindset, shifting our thinking, our perspective. Last week, I talked a little bit about how to build momentum and shift into what God has for us in this season. And one of the things that God is very particular about is that He does not allow us to do anything, honestly, without other people. So today, I want to talk about 10 mindsets hindering us from having meaningful relationships. So, we will give everybody a little bit of time to jump on, share this with your friends if you feel like it's going to be useful. I love helping people rewire their thinking. That's what I was born to do. Even as I was setting up here, I was just thinking about how many times scripture admonishes us to think on these things that are pure, lovely, and good, to renew our mind, to have the mind of Christ. And I feel like, oh, Sasha, that's so sweet. It says Sash Marsha. That is the sweetest thing I've read. Um, the scriptures are always talking, it talks about the mind constantly. Jesus admonished us in different ways, right? And so I feel like the church has done a great job of dealing with the spirit, but we haven't really mastered how we think. So today I want to talk about mindsets and ones that hinder our relationship. So y'all know me, I jump right into it. I don't do the a lot of pleasantries. I'll do those towards the end and share them later. And so, one of the things that we've been talking about in this season is that God is really giving us grace to be productive, to create, to be able to build, to be able to step into the momentum of heaven. And what I have seen over and over is how people's thinking and oh, there goes my earring, and their emotional management oftentimes hinders their ability to step into the promises of God. It's not that they're not gifted. It's not that God doesn't love them. It's not that they're not beautiful. It's not that they're not smart. It's that they just don't know how to handle other people. They don't know how to handle relationships. They don't know how to take opportunities as the Lord is giving them to them. So let's talk about this. And you guys know that tomorrow night is our Your Money, Your Mindset workshop. And some people might have been like, well, my money is fine. I don't need to do anything on, I don't need that workshop. But it's really going to deal with how we think, how we view ourselves, how we view others, how we view God, and how those things impact our relationships, what we're trying to build, the money we're trying to make, and all of that. So you still have a chance to sign up for that. But I want to give you a little bit of clue into some of the things that we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. So 10 things that are hindering you from having a meaningful relationship. The first thing is self-worth. And we all know that it's very common. We talk about it. How you view yourself is oftentimes how other people view you. And I remember one time I talked about you attract the people. The people you attract are based on what you think you're worth. And somebody was like, that's not true because I just go to the gas station and all kinds of bums talk to me. And I said, no, I'm not talking about the initial attraction. I'm talking about the people that you keep in your life as peers, as comrades, as boyfriends or girlfriends or partners. Those people that you are keeping in your life are based on what you think you're worth. And so when you look at your relationships, and if they are detrimental, if they are toxic, if they're incredibly hard, if they're incredibly messy, it is a huge reflection on how you view yourself. So how do you shift that? You shift that by changing how you view yourself. How do you shift that? You shift that by learning how God views you. How do you do that? You make the decision that you didn't make yourself, that God created you, that he has a divine plan for your life. And so what he thinks about you is more important than anybody else. And then when you start learning what God thinks about us, it's not that we're better than anybody else, but he loves us. He says we're fearfully and wonderfully made. He says that he has an expected end for us. So then at that point, anybody who comes into our life that is not part of this expected end, that doesn't understand that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and they can't talk to us any kind of way, or they don't understand that we have value, and so they can't treat us any kind of way, we can tell them no. I was talking to my husband about something, and he said, this year I'm going to be very intentional about relationships, because I cannot just have relationships where I am pouring out and nothing else is pouring into, that are friendships, right? Of course, we are pastors. So if you sign up to be a pastor, to be a leader, to be whatever, you're going to be pouring out. That's not the place where you go, where you're looking for a reciprocation, right? When there is one, that's great. But other than that, you're going to be pouring out. But when you coin someone a friend, when you say this is a peer, you need to make sure that it is a symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic means mutually beneficial. All right. And we oftentimes overlook that because we don't feel like we're worthy of also benefiting. The other thing that happens when we have the wrong mindsets, a wrong viewpoint of who we are, and we don't see our worth, is that we don't know how to set clear boundaries. And so therefore we say yes to everybody and everything because we get our worth from our yes. Somebody write that down. If you're getting your worth from your yes, your relationship is going to be toxic. If that, what that means is that there are certain people who always do things for other people, who are people pleasing because they feel like they're important when other people see them as important. They feel like they are something valuable when other people see them as valuable. So they're always giving of themselves. And then the people that are around them are only there to take. They're not there to give back. They're not there to push them to the next level. But that's because you get your identity from what people perceive you as. And so the mindset that we got to work on is our self-worth. And there is no such thing as self-worth, but there is God-worth. And when we have clear God-worth, right, then we can be able to not take on every project, every person, every relationship, and create those boundaries. The next thing that hinders our relationships is that we don't understand value. And this is part of the poverty mindset. Some of the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. A lot of times when people think of the poverty mindset, they think we're talking about money. But the poverty, it is about money, but it's also poverty in your mind, poverty in your thinking, poverty in how you process stuff, right? Someone's not paying attention. They're complimenting me on my hair, but thank you anyway. Poor quality thoughts. That is a poverty mindset, not just lack of money in your bank account. And so we have poor quality thoughts in terms of how we view ourselves. Let me give you an example. All right. There are times where it is okay, and I'm going to try to not mention any stores, right? Or maybe I'll mention a store that has gone out of business, right? If you have an emergency and you need a shoe from Payless really quickly, even though I think they came back, and you go there and you pay $12 for that shoe and you wear it once or twice, no problem, right? You needed it for that emergency, no problem. But the problem is when you have the money, but yet you go to Payless every time, and then those shoes wear out in a month, and you keep going to Payless to get the same quality shoes. What that tells me is that you don't understand value. People with the poverty mindset would rather not pay a lot, right? But because they get more of something. They'd rather not pay a lot because it serves the purpose in the meantime, right? And so they will always choose quantity over quality. Well, this transfers over into how you view yourself and even your relationships. oftentimes you will choose what works in the moment, not what works for a lifetime. And so when people have a poverty mindset when it comes to their relationships, they will take the palest shoe because it's accessible, it's easy, it's right there, instead of maybe waiting and saying no and saving maybe $40 more and adding on to the $12 and buying a shoe from Nordstrom or Macy's or wherever that may last you 6 months instead of 1 month. I hope I'm making sense. So when it comes to relationships, people have a poverty mindset and they take on whatever is given to them. Oh, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to get married, so I might as well settle down with him. I don't know if this is the best job for me, but I don't know if anybody else will hire me, so I might as well settle down with this, right? We have poor quality thoughts. And there is such a thing as poor quality thoughts that is connected to your identity. That's part of the poverty mindset. And it is very much connected to how you see your worth. And so the way that we are sabotaging or we are hindering meaningful relationships is that we're taking whatever relationships are easy. We're taking whatever relationships we think that are worth it. And then some of us, because we don't think we're worth it, there are some relationships that should be meaningful that God put in your life for the long haul. But because you don't think you're worth it, you're not willing to fight for it. Because you don't think you're worth it, you're not willing to have that conversation. And sometimes it's also how you view people. If they're not serving you, they're no longer worth it. That is poor quality thinking. I'm about to write a whole book on this poor quality thinking because I don't know if people understand that there are levels of thoughts, right? There are thoughts that sons think and there are thoughts that paupers think. And that poor quality thinking oftentimes gets us into poor quality relationships and makes us buy poor quality furniture, makes us buy poor quality shoes because it's easy and we don't want to have the hassle of putting in the work either to wait or fix whatever it is. And so we lack meaningful relationships because we don't understand the value of engagement, the value of waiting, the value of paying the price. Some of us will pay if it's free, it's for me, right? We did a video yesterday where I was sharing the importance of understanding investment, right? And people are like, if it's free, I'm going to do it. Anytime someone begins to mention a price on something, all of a sudden the person shuts down. You know why? Because you're used to poor quality. And just because it's free doesn't mean it's poor quality. I give you guys great value once a week that would be hundreds of dollars anywhere else for free. But we're not willing to invest in the next level to get the next level information. The same way we're not willing to invest in the next level to get the next level relationship. And that's because we have a poor poverty mindset in how we think. All right. I could stay that on there all day long, but poor quality in our thoughts oftentimes impacts who we choose to be around us, what we choose to invest in, and so on and so forth. The next thing is that relationships are hard work. And the thing that's hindering us from meaningful relationships is because of the hard work. When a person struggles with a poverty mindset or a lack of identity, they like things easy. You know why? Because they're afraid of failure. Why are they afraid of failure? Because when they fail, it's not that I failed on that. It's they internalize it and say, I'm a failure. So I'm not going to do anything that requires hard work because if it fails, then it means that I'm a failure. When really the truth is, if it fails, it means I need to tweak something and I need to make it better. And so when we are not willing to put in the hard work of forgiveness, when we're not willing to put in the hard work of having that tough conversation, when we're not willing to put in the hard work of staying the long haul in a relationship, then we choose the low hanging fruit. The low hanging fruit are those relationships that seem very easy, but are very much on the surface. And so one of the things that I have noticed with people that have poor quality thoughts, that struggle with the poverty mindset, is that they oftentimes don't have very deep relationships. Their relationships are very, very shallow. And this is going to show up in your romantic relationships. It's going to show up in your professional relationships. It's going to show up in a lot of things that you do. And so if you're going to succeed, whether it's in marriage, romantic relationships, friendships, in your professional relationships, career, you've got to be willing to put in the hard work and you've got to be willing to not fail at putting on the hard work. Some of us tried something once or twice and we said, well, we put in so much work and it didn't work out, so I'm not doing that again. Not knowing that success oftentimes means trying something over and over. My husband was listening to a leadership talk when we flew to Europe this winter, and he was talking about the owner of Starbucks who had this goal of opening 100 stores, and everybody kept telling him that's not possible. You need to start with like 29, with like 70, and he went to 29 different people, and all the people said, nope, 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 we're not going to fund it, we're not going to support you. And so he lowered the number to appease the people, but he didn't lower the number in his mind. Why is this important? Because we're talking about your mindset. We're talking about the poverty mindset and how it robs us of potential and of purpose and where we're going. We're going to hit more on this tomorrow night in our workshop. But because the owner of Starbucks in his mind never lowered the quality of what he saw, which was 100 stores, even though other people said 75, he was still willing to prove them wrong by putting in the hard work. And now they have over 35,000 stores all around the country. But that would not come without hard work, and it won't come if you're always afraid of failing. People who are afraid of failing don't like to work hard. They like to do the minimal. They don't like to put in the work, and it shows up even in their relationships. The next thing that we see that is hindering us, a poverty mindset that is hindering us from having quality relationships, is self-sabotage. And this is something that we could talk about for a really, really long time. But I'll hit it here a little bit. We'll hit it a little bit tomorrow night. And then on Friday, we're actually enrolling for this amazing 3-day mastery. I'm going to share more about it later, but we're going to work on mindset, on marketing, on ministry and business. So that's coming up as well. But self-sabotage goes back to self-worth. It goes to imposter syndrome. And some of you guys have heard of the imposter syndrome, which is the belief that at any point someone is going to realize that I don't know what I'm doing, even though you know what you're doing. But the lie is that you're faking your way through it. You don't know what you're doing. And so we are afraid of someone discovering that. It's a lie from the pit of hell, right? The enemy specializes in shadows, and every lie that he plants never has feet unless you give it feet. It never has a root unless you give it a root. And so the thoughts will come, but you have to uproot them. So self-sabotage is connected to you not seeing your value and not seeing that God says you're valuable and that you are loved and that you belong. And so what happens with that is that oftentimes you will find that when you are given opportunities, when you meet somebody, when someone really sees your your greatness, because you don't see it, you say, nah, I don't know what you're talking about. You quit putting in the work. You quit communicating. You quit following through. And it's because you're in a cycle and then you're in a pattern that is causing you to self-sabotage. This takes a process of inner healing. It takes a process of identifying those thoughts. But oftentimes we don't realize we're doing it and we don't have any meaningful relationships, not because people don't want to be in partnership with us or in a relationship with us, but because we don't see our value and therefore we're constantly breaking it. And we're going to see that even in business. We see it in wealth creation. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about wealth creation, because what happens is that we get these opportunities, but we're afraid we're going to mess it up. And so we don't even try. We're afraid that it's too good to be true, so we don't even try. And these are lies that we hold on to, and then we don't step into our destiny. So self-sabotage is another one. We've gone through low self-worth. We've talked about poor quality thoughts. We've talked about not having hard work. We've talked about self-sabotage. I had said 10. I think I'll give you guys 6 just so that I can take your questions for this morning. Another mindset that is hindering you from having meaningful relationships is connected to self-sabotage, but it's the fear of being abandoned. It's the fear of not being loved. It's the fear of not everybody liking you. And this is rooted maybe in an experience that you had. Maybe you were abandoned. Maybe people laughed in 6th grade when you gave that speech. Whatever it's rooted in, you got to find that first. So if you're afraid of being abandoned, you're afraid of being rejected, right? You need to say, where did this come from? And where did it come in? And then you need to replace it with the truth that even though a person may reject me, God doesn't. God loves me. God sees me. The other truth is that other people want me. They want to be around me. They want to be my friend. They want to be in a relationship. You've got to rehearse this truth, because what the fear of abandonment does is it makes you abandon other people before they abandon you. It makes you abandon that project before it can even take off, because you have this lie that's telling you it's going to fail. It makes you abandon that opportunity because you don't know how other people are going to perceive it, and you leave it before you actually finish it. And so this mindset of, oh my gosh, what if they leave me, what if it doesn't work, often causes us to leave it first, sabotage it first, abandon it first, and you never know how it's going to be. You don't want to live a life of regret. You don't want to live a life of regret. You want to live a life that always honored the Lord, that always trusted the Lord. And really, one of the best ways to do that is tell yourself, so what? A lot of times we get stuck on the what ifs, right? What if it doesn't work? What if they leave me? What if it's not him? What if it's whatever? You need to tell yourself, so what? The only way you can tell yourself, so what, though, is that you know that everything works together for your good. And so even if it doesn't work out, even if you don't make the money, even if they abandon you, at least because things work together for my good, I'm going to say, Holy Spirit, what did I learn here? How did this perfect me? How did this make me more like Jesus? How did this make me move forward? And so you got to deal with the mindset of being abandoned. And then these are the last two I'm going to give you. Competition is a mindset. Competition is a mindset, and it is super hard in this social media season to not be competitive with people you have no business being in competition with, to not compare yourself with people you have no business comparing yourself to. But when people have a poverty mindset or poor quality thinking, they will oftentimes spend more time thinking about their competitor than they think about where God is trying to take them. They will spend more time thinking about their competitors. And sometimes you don't even have no competitors, right? And so, well, maybe I would talk to that guy, but I know I'm not his type. He probably likes such and such type. Well, you've already made up this competitor in your head, right? I would step out in this industry, but this competitor is doing XYZ. The enemy loves to get you comparing and competing with people that don't even exist. And sometimes you are in a market that it is competitive and you have other people that are just like you. But then we go back to point number one. When you know that you are uniquely crafted, there is nobody else like you, there is a huge possibility of that relationship succeeding, even if you're not his type, because there is something very divine about who you are. There is a huge opportunity of that business succeeding, even if other people are doing it, because they're not doing it from your virtue and from your essence and from your perspective. And so one of the ways the enemy tries to rob us is cause us to start focusing our thinking on our competitors and those that are like us, that we don't focus on how different and unique we are, which is what gives us the upper hand. And so people with the poverty mindset oftentimes struggle with jealousy, which is the last one. Jealousy comes from competition and comparing. Jealousy comes from the inability to see your value, your worth, and what you carry. And because you are jealous, it will eat you up from the inside out. Jealousy always breeds bitterness. It always breeds contempt. It breeds offense. And when you have all those things eating up your heart, you cannot be creative. You cannot be beautiful to attract anybody. You cannot be smart to get that promotion, because you have so much that's eating up your soul that it's taking up the space where creativity and radiance and beauty is supposed to be flowing from. And so you have to deal with, why am I in competition with this person or this organization? And why am I feeling these feelings of jealousy? What is it that I have that they don't have? And that is one of the fastest ways to cure jealousy, when you can see what you have that other people don't have. And remembering, especially when you're dealing with social media, that what we see is like 20% of a person's real life, right? And sometimes it's not all true. It's not all true. And so you've got to make sure that you don't have a mindset that is in competition and a mindset that is jealous, because it will rob you of productivity and of creativity. All right. So I gave you guys 6 mindsets because I want to give a little bit of time just to answer some of your questions. Tomorrow night is our Your Mind, Your Money workshop, dealing with the poverty spirit, how to build wealth. in your relationships, in your finances, in your ministry, and in your business. And it's only $33. It's a 2.5 hour workshop, probably three, because I like to answer all your questions. And then we have the summit that's coming up that we will roll out on Friday that you guys will get to hear about. Um, I would encourage you to take the workshop because there's going to be some surprises in there in regards to the summit. All right. So let me take your questions. You can put hashtag Q at the bottom if you have a question concerning what we are talking about. All right. Let me go ahead and bring Instagram close to me so that I can scroll and I can see their questions here. Question: can you recover or redeem something that you have allowed your mindset to sabotage? Yeah, I mean, some things you can go back and it's fine. Some relationships are not redeemable, but some things you can go back and say, you know what? I was bugging out and I was immature and I quit too soon. I gave up on us too soon, or I didn't follow through. And you got to, but it requires maturity and requires honesty. And you can go back and just tell them what really happened and see if you can start from that point or whatever the issue is. Now, if it's a job and the job has been given to somebody else, you got to move forward, right? And just make sure that you don't sabotage again. How do you start to get out of this self-sabotage mindset? How do you stay free from that mindset? You have to identify where you struggle with rejection and lack of self-worth. That's the first step, right? And once you have identified rejection and self-worth, right, then you got to replace it with who you really are. So you go on a journey, and our mentorship program, it opens end of February. This is what we take people through the first 3 months, really forming their identity, forming their purpose, and all of that. But it is a rehearsing the truth about who you really are, so that when the lie comes up that you're not worthy of it, you don't sabotage it. All right. The other four on the app, I am not sure what which other four. This was very eye-opening, very good. No, nothing is on the app. We're actually revamping our app because we didn't like how it rolled out. And so you guys are gonna have a fresh, clean, beautiful app in the next couple of days, really, and we'll do a relaunch. So I'm not sure what the app question is in reference to. To break most of this, it is just pushing while being afraid. Realize the truth, praying for healing, fighting with the word, and executing whatever it may be. Yeah, you got to do it while you're afraid. Do it afraid. All right. Instagram. What kind of prayers do you pray to break off the poverty mindset from your significant other? So you pray that God shows him that he has the poverty mindset. You break the poverty mindset by rewiring your thinking. And so they have to identify where they have those poverty thinking patterns and then rewiring it. And you could also just buy him the workshop for tomorrow night, and get him in there and see if we can get him in the process of learning how to uncover that and step into his identity. All right, how do you manage a season where nothing is progressing? Career stuck, yet I know the potentials I got, and I believe I'm different and can make it. Well, if the career is stuck, you need to know what you need to do to become unstuck, right? And part of that is you need to know where you're going. So, are you going to stay where you are in your career? What is the next step in your career? How do you get to your next step in your career? What are you doing right now to get to that step? That's what you need to be asking you. If it's an organizational stuck, like I'm stuck because of my organization, do I need to be in a different environment? Do I need to be in a different organization to keep going? Where do you struggle with rejections? Where do you struggle with rejections and self-worth? I'm not sure what that question means where it says where, but it's internal. How do you distinguish between toxic, not for me, versus just going through a tough season? Well, because they are for you and they're usually very good for you and they have been very helpful and they have been supportive in the past, and right now you're just in a tough season. But if you look at the relationship and throughout most of it, it's been not symbiotic. Like I said, it has not been very helpful and it has taken more than it has given, then it's probably toxic. I said I wasn't doing 10 because I wanted to answer your questions. I have another meeting at 12, so I did 6. Very good. All right. What about redeeming a relationship, but they are now dating someone else? Well, you missed it, right? Like You missed it. They're with somebody else. If it's the Lord, maybe they won't work out. Now, if they're married, you've missed it. So things like that, there's nothing that you can do about it, right? You just keep living your life, and maybe you'll come back around, maybe they won't. Things like a job that you sabotaged and it's now somebody else's job. You can't go back and take their job. The same way you can't go back and take their girlfriend or boyfriend because you missed it. And so you just got to keep going and see what the Lord does, not necessarily even with that, but with you. And just learn from that. You got to learn from the cycles and patterns in the past so that you don't repeat them in the future. All right. Do you recommend a certain method of therapy for helping to deal with these relational issues? I mean, you can go see a therapist and see what kind of, it depends on your triggers, traumas, and whatever is going on. Like I said, we have the workshop tomorrow night to help you guys get started. And then end of February, we've created a whole inner healing and deliverance module that takes people through these issues. So you'll be seeing our DTA registration going up at some point for that as well. All right, questions before I jump off to my appointment here. We're talking about mindsets that hinder you from having really good relationships. Aaron said, excellent and powerful teaching today, Dr. Faith. Still excited from your teaching on Sunday. I'm so glad you were able to make it in Chicago. So good. Where can we see the replay, or where will the replay be for this? Either on my YouTube or here on Instagram. All right. If you opened your mouth too soon about an opportunity, can it be delayed? If other people are trying to delay you, but oftentimes not because you opened it too soon. It's because other people have taken it from you. So not if it's not in anybody's hands except God, I don't think so. But you want to use wisdom and not get too excited about something until you have all the information. I bring out a lot of jealousy in women. How do I go about making friends with women who are not jealous of my looks or station in life? Well, so there are also people who are really beautiful and they're very successful and they're very smart and they're very secure. Those are your friends, right? Like you're not always going to be the most beautiful person in the room. You're not going to be always the smartest, right? And so I just look for people who are confident, who love themselves and don't care about anything that I have or anything that I do. Those are the people that I want to be friends with. And so you just need to get around circles of people who are doing better than you, because they're not going to be intimidated of you at all. But you also got to make sure that you don't thrive off other people being jealous of you, right? Because some people get their identity from like, oh, women don't love me. But the truth could be that maybe because that makes you feel important. And I'm not saying this is true about you because I don't know you, but because that makes you feel important, then you put off this air, right? You guys call them vibes. We call them spirits. No, I'm just kidding. We put off this air, which then repels people from us. There is something called discernment that people may not even know they're exercising. But if somebody carries some sort of air about them, it makes them unattractive. And if you're filled with the Holy Spirit and you love Jesus and you're full of joy, it really doesn't matter how beautiful or how smart you are, because people will want to be around you. Like they will say, man, a matter of fact, the science behind all of this research says that people actually like to be around pretty people. The psychology of attraction and proximity says that people like to be around pretty people. And so just because you're beautiful, that it doesn't mean people shouldn't want to be around you. In matter of fact, people that do very well as influencers and entrepreneurs and all of that are actually beautiful. Hence, look at me. No, I'm just kidding. But they also have a great personality. They are fun loving, they are kind, they are funny. And so, just make sure that you're exuding those things as well. And you're patient, and you also exude humility, which is not always bringing out your full strength all the time in every room. Learning how to restrain your strength so that you don't crush the people around you, right? So that they feel good around you, they feel comfortable around you. All right. All right. How do you over abandonment when it's connected to death? Well, it wasn't the person's fault that they died, right? I know that maybe if it's a suicide, like they killed themselves, you may feel like they abandoned you, but you want to think about them more than yourself, right? They were in pain, they were hurting, they had to go. But oftentimes when a person dies, they don't want to die. Right, like they could be 150 years old. Nobody wants to die, so they didn't abandon you. If they had a choice, tell yourself this: they would still be alive, right? And even people who do take their own life, if they, because what they do is they feel like they don't have a choice in that moment. So if they knew they had a choice, they would still be alive. So we should never see anybody dying as them abandoning it. It's actually really unfair because most likely they didn't want to die. And we're being, this is tough, but a little bit selfish because we're thinking about us and we're not thinking about how they probably didn't want to go and weren't ready to go either. All right. How do we sign up? So the tomorrow night, it's really simple. It's just, let me see if I can put it up here. It's bit.ly/ your mind, your money. No capitals, no nothing. That's for the workshop for tomorrow. And then for the mentorship program and all of that, those things are going to be, you'll see them. We'll start sharing about those in the years to come. Let me see if I can put this here. Go ahead and drop your questions in the chat with the hashtag Q. And I would love to answer your questions about your relationships before I've gotta run here. Let me see if I can just put this registration link up on YouTube. And all right, let me see if there are other questions that I am missing right now. All right, there it is. All right. When when marriage, trying to change your mindset and actions, how can you encourage your spouse to be patient through the process when they have gotten tired and no longer have faith in you? Show them little wins, show them little changes. If they say, "Man, you never pick up your socks," and you say, "I'm changing," don't say, "I'm changing," pick up your socks. If they say, "You always lie," don't say, I'm not going to lie anymore. Say, "This is really hard for me, but I'm going to tell you the truth." So show them more actions than words. Show them little ones, even if it's just little by little. All right. When you identify your faults, what do you do to fix it? This made me realize I have rejection issues and self-sabotage issues that ties to poverty mindset. You have to identify them, replace them, right? So tomorrow night in the workshop, we'll give you guys some tools on how to shift that. And then when we open up our DTA, which is our Destiny Mentoring Academy, we will work on that. But you got to identify the faulty beliefs. You got to replace them with the truth, and then you got to rehearse the truth. How do you heal from toxic relationship when it's your parent and you are caring for them? You set boundaries and you see them the way that God sees them, right? Because right now you just see them as they're mean, they're this, they're that, but they're probably like that because they're probably broken and they have issues internally. And so when you can separate yourself from someone and see them from a different light, you oftentimes, one, can set the boundaries, but also can be more merciful and more forgiving. But if they're, it's like ongoing and unshifting, that's where the boundaries come in. And you also need to express to them how you really feel about it. All right. Bless you guys. Bless you. I think I got every question here. Not sure why I keep getting rejected in relationships. Every guy rejects me and it's affecting my faith and desire to be married one day. So if the guy rejects you, who approached you, right? Did you approach them? Because if they approached you, they already are telling you that they didn't reject you. They told you that they liked you, right? But then there is something that's going on in that relationship that's making them say, I am done, right? And that's what you need to do the work. And you may want to ask them. You may even want to hit back some of the guys that rejected you and say, man, I'm really working on myself. What was it in that relationship for you that didn't work? And be willing to hear the truth and then begin to go on the process. Now, if you're chasing after the guys and they're rejecting you, that could be the issue, that they're like, you're too much, you want too much, you are too needy, right? Like you got to figure out, and I would ask them and begin to work on that process. What do you do if you notice your partner makes a lot of poor decisions regarding his co-parenting situation? He's your partner. You should be able to talk to him, but you don't want to say, hey, you're making a lot of poor decisions. You want to say, hey, did you ever think of doing it like this? Hey, in this situation, do you think this would work better? Make them suggestions, especially for men. All right. I lost some of you guys here on Facebook, but I'm back. But you want to make sure that you're making suggestions, not just telling him what to do in that instance. All right. What if the toxic people are in laws and your spouse doesn't agree on setting boundaries? He says he does, but lacks action. Then you set the boundaries, right? You say, okay, well, I'm going to go to these things with them. And when they start talking about this, I'm not going to respond. Let your spouse know, but it is his job to set those boundaries. What is the limit of trying something over and over when you see potential or just wanting to honor God's word so you decide to suffer? Well, you don't just do things because you see potential. You do things because you're fruitful in those things. God doesn't call you to do something that you just have potential in. He calls you to anything God calls you to do is going to be fruitful. And so you may be thinking it's God, but if you've tried it over and over and it's not, either it's the wrong timing, either you don't have the right tools, or it's not the Lord. So you want to reassess that and say, did God really call me? Do I have the tools? Do I have the resources? Because if he did, there should be some level of fruit. All right, my dears, let me go. Got an appointment at 12. I look forward to chatting with you guys. I'll go live, I think, tomorrow morning one more time. And then we got the workshop. We have an amazing mastermind opening up in February, as well as DTA. So we've got some great things coming up towards you. Keep in touch with our socials. Make sure you subscribe to AskDrFaith.com so you can get our emails. And then please share this broadcast and subscribe if you haven't already. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. See you later.